South Manitou Island has a very unique history because it was actually settled before the mainland. It was settled about 1835 by a gentleman named William Burton. He had the idea to use the dense forests that are out there on the island to supply firewood and cordwood to the steamships coming through Lake Michigan. A lot of steamships would pass through from Chicago up to the Straits of Mackinac, and they would stop on the island because it had the only protected natural deep water harbor on the lake between Chicago and the Straits of Mackinac. So the population boom on South Manitou Island was kind of in the mid-1800s due to all this shipping and logging that was going on out there. The island kind of had a nice booming peak around 1847 when there was a blacksmith shop, a general store, even a post office out there on the island. But once these ships slowly converted to coal and didn't need this firewood and cordwood anymore, there wasn't much of a need to stop on South Manitou Island. So the kind of boom died in the early 1900s when people slowly moved off the island because there wasn't work for them. There was a Coast Guard station that was on South Manitou Island. They closed down in the early 1950s. And then the park took over in the early 1970s. On South Manitou Island, there you will see a 65-foot tall lighthouse that you can climb up and visit. That lighthouse, though, is not the same one that was originally built. There were two more before that lighthouse that were insufficient, so they built this new one that is a lot taller for ships to see from the water. Here at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, we are protecting the cultural and natural resources of South Manitou Island for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations to come. And that is why we are working on the Shoreline restoration project to keep the lighthouse standing so everyone can enjoy it.
Well, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a real high water level, and we have gotten storms that have come out of the east and northeast and southeast, and it's caused erosion, and it just keeps washing away, and it's threatened a couple of our buildings out there. It hasn't gotten to the lighthouse yet, but it's quite close to the whistle shed. So we've put a project together to have that shoreline stabilized. So a contractor has come in and they put down material, pile rocks on top of that, and then they bring in some huge boulders, and it's just like a seawall, and it keeps it from eroding any further, and it stabilizes it.
The purpose for our job there was to install a rock revetment wall. Due to the rising waters, had compromised the shoreline around the lighthouse and the fog house. We were to place approximately 5,000 ton of large 10,000 pound rocks to protect the shoreline. One of the challenges was to get all the rock to the island, and we used a large barge, and we loaded all the rock and our excavators and equipment in Ironton, brought that over to the island. It was about 10 loads. We had 2 excavators and a haul truck to unload the rock and get it on the shore. The process to install the rock required us to have the machinery in the water, so special provisions for that were to equip the equipment with environmentally friendly oil, so in case there was a spill, it would not impact the environment. In order to install the rock, we had to dig 8 feet below water, install some geotextile fabric underneath that, and place the rock on top of it. The reason for it being that deep is if the water were to go down, the wind and waves would not erode underneath the wall, compromising its integrity. The entire project consisted of 335 feet approximately of rock revetment encompassing the lighthouse and the fog house as well. And it took us a month and a half to do that. We started at the very end of July and finished in the middle of September.
If you come to the island now, you'll see the village. You'll see the boat houses with the old rescue boats in them. There was a farming community here, and you can get a tour out to the farms that used to operate here when there were people on the island. There's nobody that lives here year-round anymore. The park keeps the island open. Usually Memorial Day through Labor Day is the busiest time. But they do open up around the 1st of May, and we usually close everything up by mid-September.
The National Park Service, in addition to stabilizing the shoreline near the lighthouse, we're also working on an access project to make the lighthouse more accessible for all visitors that want to travel to the island, especially those visitors that may be blind or have low vision, or people that may have mobility issues. Getting to the lighthouse can be a challenge right now. So we are working on access to the lighthouse by putting in some new walkways, making them more accessible and universally accessible to people. And we're also working on restoring some of the interiors. The interior of the fog signal building will be restored so people can get inside that building and see the interior of that building. We're also putting some what we call interpretive media. If you've been to national parks, you'll see these waysides, these low information signs that are on the landscape. It will tell the history of the lighthouse. It'll tell the history of the lighthouse keepers. There's generations of South Manitou lighthouse keepers and their descendants that still really feel a connection. We're going to make those stories available so people can really learn some of the neat stories of the lighthouse and what it was like for people to be there and live there. The National Park System currently has over 400 National Park Service units. Each one of them is preserved and protected for a unique reason. This park is protected and preserved for the unique features that are found here, the geology, the ecology, the history. And so South Manitou is being preserved for the future generations, for their inspiration, for their recreation and enjoyment, and also being preserved for the plants and animals that live on the island. The National Park Service can't do this alone. We need your help. When you go out to the island, you recognize that it's a unique place that is very fragile. There's all kinds of history that's just laying around. Look at it, enjoy it, and then leave it for the next visitor. Don't take it off the island, don't stick it in your backpack. Not only is that illegal because this is a protected site, but the next person then can't enjoy it. And we're losing that little bit of history if you disturb it or take it. This is a unique environment with the sand that we have here. It's very easy for social trails to form, and that affects the plants and animals that are on the island. Just like with the history, enjoy the ecology, enjoy the animals, enjoy the plants when you're out there, but don't disturb them and just enjoy them, and let the next people that come out to the island also enjoy them.